Miss Luce, part 26 of 30. Is it lonely working for yourself? So if you're new, then this video sits within a suite of videos, whether you're starting your own business, thinking about it, maybe you're running one. There are other things that you might find useful that we've spoken about already. If you have been following, you'll have seen in part 23 a sort of summary of where I am now. We talk about the power of your brand. And it refers back to all the other videos that I've covered in this suite. But it occurs to me this morning, if you are just starting out, then me telling you how things are now, 4 years down the line, 4 years plus, is not necessarily helpful. It will give you something to aim for. So this morning, I'm kind of taking myself back to the moment, the first day that I was officially on my own. You know, I'd worked out 3 months' notice, I'd worked for another 4 part-time. 1st of September 2019, I was sat in my kitchen alone. And so yes, is it lonely working for yourself? This was a question that a lot of people had asked me, or it was certainly front of mind at that time. So let's firstly just draw a distinction between being lonely and being alone. So there's me, I'm sat in the kitchen. My job before was in a company with 500 other people. You know, there were stores all over well, internationally actually, but I had a lot of contact with people in the UK, a lot with Ireland, some in Australia, the Nordics, the Netherlands. I'm around people all the time. You know, I'm used to having someone sat next to me or on a pod of, you know, people, corridor conversations, chatting in the kitchen, making a coffee. And here's me, the first day, very aware that I'm alone. I didn't feel lonely. It was just a situation that I was not used to. And I was like, what the bloody hell am I going to do? You know, it's early days. I didn't have a lot of customers at that point. I'm sort of building out my plan and working on my brand, all the things that we've talked about before. And I was like, oh, this is weird. It was quiet. That wasn't an environment I was used to. I think what I actually did was took my laptop and went into a coffee shop and I had a coffee. Whether I did any work or not, I can't actually remember, probably not. But it was a weird environment, a bit like, you know, when you pass your driving test and you go and sit in the car on your own for the first time, it's like, oh, you're very aware that it's just you. Curious. So I just was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and just put myself in a situation where I know there are just other people around me. But see, again, if you've watched other videos, when I'm working and I'm painting, I kind of go into sort of flow. I've said it's sort of magic. If I'm in a good place and I start, I'm alone, but I'm not lonely by any stretch. I'm just concentrating. So in that instance, it's really important that I am alone because that's what enables me to work. You know, I don't want distractions. I don't want noise. I just in this little magic bubble of creativity. So lonely then, here's a good example. Well, this is something that resonated with me because evidently I'm a chatty person. You know, I've just made friends. If you watched video 25, just made friends with ChatGPT. I'll have a conversation with absolutely anyone. And we'll come on to that in a sec. Very early in this period of being alone, just me, fully self-employed, a friend of mine said, come on, Luce, she said, I'll help you. I'm going to a drinks party with a lot of my colleagues and institutions. Come along as Bake with Luce. Oh, okay. So I went to this thing and it's a room full of people. And I can't tell you how lonely I actually felt, which is weird because when you're surrounded by people, but this is where I draw the distinction of sort of positive alone versus maybe negative lonely. I'm used to going to those sorts of events where there are lots of people, you're all chatting, but with the security previously as marketing manager, you know, I had a job title, I had a company, it was an environment I was comfortable in, I knew what I was talking about. To go into this room, not as Lucy that works at blah, 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 Bake with Luce, those were conversations I was not used to having and it was really lonely, terrifying. And I got home and I was like, oh, I don't want to put myself in that situation again. But you see the difference being alone versus lonely. So there are instances when I'm alone when I do think I'd like to have some company. You know, I am a sociable human beings by their very nature, a sociable creatures. So I do have to go out and seek company to spend time with my friends, with my family. It's not a difficult thing. Having said that, a lot of my friends do work 9 to 5. So I've now found different pools of people to spend my time with, as well as my family as well, you know, hugely important. And this job enables me to spend more time doing that. If you're, how can I explain? I'll chat to anyone, I really will. And if you're not as comfortable in that situation, and take this example of me going to an environment where I'm Bake with Luce now and not something else, you know, what do I have to offer? So here's the thing to think about. Don't think about what you have to offer. Think about what you might learn from other people. You don't have to go into a wall. You don't have to go into a room and tell everybody about yourself. You can just, it's an interesting exercise to do this, and it's one that I practice because I am a jibber jabber sometimes. Go into a space where you don't know people and listen. Expect that you might learn, we've all got stories, right? Go into a place where you are anticipating learning something from whoever you meet. You don't really need to present yourself in that situation. It does get easier the more you do it, but don't feel in the first instance, you know, and as someone that's comfortable now in my own skin, I've got no issue with going to these places. You know, I go, take a breath, go listen. And if somebody asks me, oh, what do you do? You know, once you've done it once, I'm Bake with Luce, I make these amazing cakes. Imposter syndrome going, who the flipping heck are you? It gets easier. But yeah, we might learn something from other people. So lonely, you can find comfort in all sorts of places, from your friends, your family, from strangers. Being alone, I need to be alone when I'm working. But it was a different sort of experience for me. It was one that I was not used to. That first day, very, very curious. Something to bear in mind. You know, we need connection. And if you find that that's a daunting task, it's just one of those, when we talked about the pros and cons of what it is to work for yourself, there are things that I love and things that I don't like. So when it comes to accounting, I have to make myself sit down and do it. It's hard, but I have to. So if you find it hard going out to meet new people, because you never know what comes from a good conversation, right? You're just going to have to do it. But don't go with the view necessarily that you have to talk about yourself. Having this perspective that you're meeting people and learning from them, it's a fabulous thing. You know, quiet down, listen to the conversations going around you. Don't feel always that you need to chip in. That's one thing. In fact, it was the biggest lesson that I ever learned from my dad, was the practice of listening. Try it. Go somewhere, take a little seat back and just observe, listen to the things, especially in a situation where these maybe are new people. Certainly in the first instance, I had to find people because I was used to that environment. So there was networking. I say networking, it sounds a bit, there was breakfast meetings that they would have people come to talk. You know, you go and have a coffee, you'd sit next to someone you didn't know. You don't necessarily have to say anything, but it does get easier. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Is it lonely working for yourself? No. Do you need to be alone? Well, maybe sometimes. What I'm discovering, and this is over time, is that I do like to be around people. So maybe what does that look like for Bake with Luce? You know, I'm looking for premises at the moment. Is it just me, or am I looking now to build out a tribe of people that I want to work with? Because at the moment, I have to physically go out to interact. It's a question for me at the moment. But yeah, this moment when my first day on my own, oh, it was a weirdy thing. So if you are in that situation, something to have a little ponder over. Anyway,